Sandtroopers.com. Never imitating, always innovating, bringing you the latest coverage in the Star Wars galaxy.
As a ghost, because he was even then thinking of doing the prequel someday, and he didn't want anything muddying the time stream. You know, he didn't want us to introduce any storylines that might muck up what they would, you know, the story that they come up with for the prequels way down the road. So he was thinking, this was way back, this was '84, and he was already thinking about keeping those prequel ideas pristine. So.
Now, when Marvel had the run, you had the original adaptations for Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi. What information did you have that would allow you to go tell whatever stories you wanted to tell and then arc it back in order to get to where Empire was? Or were you guys just given a free hand on the story? Or how far ahead?
Joe Duffy was given a free hand to introduce a lot of new characters and new races. She introduced the Nagai, which apparently went on to the extended universe and the novels and stuff, and the Zeltrons, and so she did a lot of that. We were able to work with Luke and Leia and Han and Han's long-lost brother that she made up, who was really cool, and the Empire. And it was, the basic parameters was that there were still pockets, the Empire was really big, and there were still pockets of resistance all over the universe. So they would fight them, you know. But there wasn't any, she wasn't given any kind of an overarching thing to bring it back to Empire. This was all post, it was concurrent with the Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi. And actually Return of the Jedi is what finished it for Marvel Marvel and Lucasfilm, which is a funny story, which I might tell you sometime. There was a big snafu, and head, yeah, there's dirt, there's serious dirt, and heads rolled, but I know the side of it that my writers and my editor told me I can't swear it's gospel, but you can ask me at the end if you want to boff over it.
Now, you mentioned, you know, licensing and Lucas being relatively hands-off back then. Kat, what rule, how rigid has Lucasfilm become over the years in terms of allowing people into that universe? I mean, it seemed like with the Star Trek novels, you have, you know, stories going all over the place, and that really is not considered part of the continuity. Whereas with Star Wars, everything's in the continuity.
Yeah,
if it's allowed in, then it's official. How do they determine who gets to play?
Oh, I don't know how they determine who gets to play, but they, in the projects that I've worked on, where it be the cards or some of the online content, unless the character is already specifically designed, like a Han Solo or something that's been in the thing forever, you kind of just have to go with what it is. I was lucky enough last December to do some illustrations for some short stories that were put up online, where the characters were kind of, there was like one drawing of them from 20 years ago or something, and it was just like, so you can kind of just go with what you want. And so I was lucky enough to be able to actually develop how some of these characters actually look. So that was pretty cool. But I know as far as like a lot of the card projects I've worked on and stuff like that, they'll come in and say, we specifically want you just to touch this area and these characters, and that's all you can do. I mean, so it just kind of, I think it kind of depends on the project.
Did anyone anticipate the Mara Jade card taking off as well as it did? I mean, suddenly it's just, I mean, there's a couple of photographs, and you've got this one girl that came in to play the character for the photo.
Yeah.
And suddenly she's in the top 10.
I know.
Was it?
That's pretty amazing. I'm kind of hoping the same thing happens with stuff I did last December, because I actually got to put a face on a character that was in the expanded universe called Alex Winger, that had only been in like the little the mini comics, like the kids comics, and so I actually got to put a human face on her now. So I'm kind of hoping the same thing happens. But yeah, it's really wild how just some obscure thing, an obscure card, you know, it's kind of like the Boba Fett effect, I guess.
Yeah. But also, I mean, with Mara Jade, I mean, she's like a female
right
Jedi.
It's awesome.
You know, She
more
goes
of that.
She goes way back in canon, and a lot of people have a big investment in her. So I could have predicted that.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, when Dark Horse picked it up from Marvel, were you given any? Was there a prenup? Was there any kind of instructions going into it? You can do this. You cannot do this. What was the setup for you guys?
Well, let me address the. Excuse me.
That's the good mic.
Yeah. Let me address the licensing issue real quick, because I've been working with Lucasfilm over 20 years, and it came in right at the beginning of the transition between Marvel, or the Marvel years, if we put it that way, and the Dark Horse years. And there was about 3 years that Lucasfilm did basically nothing in licensing, because they had a group of people, a very, very small group of people working in licensing. During the Marvel years, they had the Hasbro stuff, and that was pretty much it from Star Wars through Return of the Jedi, and then they had the comics. So there was really no need at that point for a large licensing staff, or even a continuity staff. They let Marvel handle the continuity, and they just sort of shook their head or nodded, or whatever George sent down in a note and said don't do.
Yeah.
So it was very loosey-goosey back then, and
They didn't want stormtrooper helmets on Ewoks.
right.
That was dead out.
So when the Marvel license ended, pretty much everything stopped at Lucasfilm for licensing. And they sort of regrouped, and they saw what was happening with the Star Trek license and the novels and the resurgence of reading material in the mid to late 80s. And so they commissioned the 3 Jedi books from, I can't remember the guy's name, Tim Zahn. And that sort of started the resurgence of the licensing material. And Dark Horse came in at that time because they wanted to follow up Marvel, but there was such a flux in the Lucasfilm organization that there really wasn't anything happening until the Zahn books came out. And then they hired a continuity editor at Lucasfilm, and they had a couple of people who had been with the company for a long time. So they decided to have an in-house sort of Lucasfilm publishing, that they would oversee all of the continuity within what they were going to be doing, starting fresh and actually throwing out a lot of what Marvel did, because it did not fit into the continuity that they wanted to be canon.
Right.
From the point of the Zahn books, the Dark Empire, and then moving into the expanded universe.
Yeah, they were free to take or leave. When Dark Horse acquired the rights, they acquired the rights to everything Marvel had done with Star Wars up to that point.